Yo, what's up? It's your boy, Mark K. Smith, also known as AK, also known as the coolest guy in sports. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We're back talking Indiana Fever basketball. We're talking Kelsey Mitchell. We're talking Caitlin Clark, of course, turning down the NBA three-point contest. We're also talking some NBA news because the NBA trade deadline is quickly and vastly approaching. I'm sorry. Let's get into it. I've been sick, y'all, for the past week. Sick for the week and a half. I don't know what's going on in the world, but a lot of people are getting sick. A lot of people are having different type of viral infections and the flu and the stomach virus and this and that. But I am back 100%. You can see in the energy. You can tell that I'm back. But we're talking to Indiana Fever. First and foremost, before we get started on Caitlin Clark and her turning down the NBA contest, because I know that's what y'all came here for. I want to shout out to Indiana Fever. I want to shout out Caitlin Clark. I want to shout out Kelsey Mitchell for getting a contract extension. I made my last stream and I was talking about how Kelsey Mitchell, what teams was she going to go to? It didn't make any sense for her to leave the Indiana Fever, but with everything that's been happening with Jewel Lloyd getting traded, Kelsey Plum getting traded, it was kind of like, well, Kelsey Mitchell hasn't resigned yet. Even on the Indiana Fever, were promoting Kelsey Mitchell on social media like she was still a member on the team. Guess that was true after all, but it was like, what team was she was going to go to? Chicago Sky fans thought she was going to go and play with Chicago, which that didn't make any sense because Jewel Lloyd is from the state of Illinois and didn't decide to go and play there, didn't even want to go even have a conversation with them. So they just left. They got rid of Kennedy Carter, unrestricted free agent, just let their best player go. They said, oh, you can walk. We don't want to deal with you regardless of some of her issues that she may has had in the past or current in the locker room. That wasn't really a smart move. Chicago Sky fans thought that she was going to go and play with them. Kelsey Mitchell, nope, didn't really make sense. Then it was just like the Las Vegas Aces didn't really make sense because of the fact of the matter they just got Jewel Lloyd. People thought the Golden State Valkyrie. Well, Kelsey Mitchell was a two-time All-Star, 2023-2024 NBA season. He never went to the postseason until this year with Caitlin Clark and the crew. Why would she want to be in a rebuilding situation with a franchise that's going to be in poverty for a little while until they get the proper team and draft the proper players? That didn't make sense. So it made sense for her to re-sign with the Indiana Fever. And I said in my last stream, and I'm going to say it again, I know she only signed a max deal. She signed a max deal with the Indiana Fever, $249,244. It's essentially a one-year deal. But since she was a core player, basically, she had to come out and say that she wanted out and she wanted to be traded, but she did not do that, so she re-signed with the Indiana Fever. Essentially, this is going to be a 2-year deal, even though she only signed a 1-year contract, because I expect her to be with the Indiana Fever this year and also next year as well, because she's going to get cored again, and then we know with the new CBA and the Players Union, and they're going to negotiate a contract. She would probably get to earn her big multi-year max contract after these 2 years, after the 2026 NBA season. But a lot of people wanted the Kelsey Mitchell to go to a different place due to the fact of the matter is that they saw how dynamic Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell were together in the second half of the season. And Kelsey Mitchell averaged 19 points, shot 45% for the field, 40% for the three-point line. That was her total stat line when we talk about the entire season. But the back half, and y'all get in the chat and y'all let me know any other WNBA, NBA questions I want to talk about. But chat, in the back half, the second half of the 2024 WNBA regular season, what we saw with Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell was Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson like. We saw the most electric duo probably in a very, very long time since Swoops and Cheryl back in the Houston Comets days. Like that's what we saw, and it was very phenomenal, and they were so gifted, and they were literally unstoppable. Like they were literally unstoppable, and it was just beautiful. I mean, like the scoring, the fast pace, the up and down, and it was extremely electric. I mean, I've never really I was so excited watching them play together. It was like you couldn't. It was like you can't miss basketball when you was watching Indiana Fever. Like once again, the second half of the season, a lot of people wanted Kelsey Mitchell to leave and go and sign somewhere else because they don't want the Indiana Fever or Caitlin Clark to succeed. But the second half of the season was like watching Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell was like watching prime Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, and we haven't seen a more electrifying duo in the WNBA since Cynthia Cooper and Sheryl Swoops back in the Houston Comic days. That's how electrifying Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark was. And if you look at their stats, when you combine their stats, they average combined, this is everything together, 51.3 points per game combined in the second half of the season, 11 assists, of course, with the bulk of being Caitlin Clark, assists, 9 rebounds. They shot in a combined 50% from the field, 42% from the three-point line, and 91% from the free throw line. That is box office. They were hooping. They were getting to the money. It was all about the chicken. They were unguardable on the court. They were literally electric, unstoppable, exciting. Like, it was a phenomenon. Like, watching them play was mind-blowing. And now that they have this duo going back into the upcoming season, and who knows what other moves that they're possibly going to make and go after, I feel like they should go after and try to figure out some way possible, if Gabby Williams wants out, to try to go get Gabby Williams. I know people say Santu, she's not going to really be available. They're not going to have the right pieces to possibly get her on that roster. But if Gabby Williams wants to be available, that's a move I believe they should go out and get. But it was electrifying. It was unstoppable. It was unguardable. The pace, the speed, the connection, the chemistry. It was like watching a quarterback and Caitlin Clark pass to a wide receiver. It was like watching Peyton Manning and Marvin Harris. It was like watching Montana and Jerry Rice. It was like watching Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. It was like watching Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson. It was like watching Kurt Warner and Torrey Holt. Like it was very, very special watching just the chemistry of the passing and the facilitating and the pace of play that Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell was doing on the basketball court once they really connected and had that chemistry in the second half of the basketball season for the WNBA. Now, that's here nor there. We know Kelsey Mitchell is back. Now, Caitlin Clark turns down the NBA three-point contest. Was this a smart move? Why did she do it? Was there strategy behind it? The truth of the matter is, when we talk about Caitlin Clark is not a appetizer. She is the entree. I'm going to say that again. When we talk about Caitlin Clark turning down the NBA three-point contest, she's basically saying no to the gimmicks. She's saying no to the gimmicks. She's saying that she is not an appetizer. She is not a side course. She is the entree. She is the main meal. She's not going to go over and play in the NBA in a league for a three-point contest where outside of LeBron James and outside of Stephen Curry and outside of Kevin Durant, where she's the biggest draw and the most popular basketball player in the entire world. That's Caitlin Clark. So it would have been fun to watch. It would have been exciting, but Caitlin Clark's brand and when she speaks and when she comes out and says things, it's always very strategic because she's letting it be known that I want all the 36 million people that millions of dollars that I helped generate of money in Indianapolis. I want them to see me in a three-point contest in Indiana this upcoming season. I want that to be my first three-point contest. I also don't like necessarily the format because right now in the off season, she's training. She's getting ready to go. She doesn't want to mess up like possibly going from her training, which is catch and shoot, which is creating off the dribble and shooting threes, to standing in motion, catching the ball, and she doesn't really want to do that. So shout out to her because she's basically saying that I am the face of the WNBA. I am the biggest draw in the WNBA, and I'm not just the biggest draw in the WNBA. I'm possibly, outside of LeBron James, the biggest draw in all of basketball. That is what Caitlin Clark is saying. You're not going to essentially use me for a weekend all-star festival event when I feel like I haven't even done it in my league yet. And I don't like this thing of like, oh, the biggest basketball star in the world, come over and do a weekend event for us and help us get viewers, help us get people locked on to the event, because it had so much success last year with Sabrina Escu and Stephen Curry. And it was phenomenal. It was like 10 million unique viewers, the NBA said, that watched Sabrina Escu and Stephen Curry, and it was potentially supposed to be Sabrina, Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Caitlin Clark this year. That's what the rumors were saying. But Clark is bigger than almost every domestic star in the NBA besides LeBron James, Stephen Curry, and Kevin Durant. So it doesn't make sense for her to come on and do it for a weekend. And she's kind of like, no, we're going to pump the brakes on that. We ain't really rocking with that. And people are talking about that. People are having conversations. And she is a needle mover. And it's nice to see how a lot of the conversations that most of the purists in the game have been happening. Now everybody's coming on board. But here is Chiney talking about it right now.
She is the needle. A lot of people say that Caitlin Clark moves the needle. That is wrong. She is the needle. She dictates. We all know what she's done on the floor. It's history, right? But off the floor, my goodness, she and the Indiana Fever accounted for 45% of all the broadcast value of the WNBA last season. She accounted also for
45% of the broadcast value. That means Caitlin Clark, basically over half of the time, that almost half for the broadcast value. When we're talking about Caitlin Clark and we're talking about the WNBA, that means almost half of all of the viewership and broadcasting value was with Caitlin Clark games. And I'm going to come out and say this. Essentially, this means that Caitlin Clark, if she's not bigger than the WNBA in the next year or so, she will be eventually bigger than the WNBA. It's like LeBron James. I know we shouldn't use social currency as a way to view certain things. LeBron James has more Instagram followers than the NBA. LeBron James is a billionaire. LeBron James, his voice, his impact, his power, when he speaks and when he says things, the NBA listens. For Caitlin Clark in such a smaller league, it's going to be much more easier for her to be bigger than the WNBA if she's not already, due to the fact of the matter is that the league is still young, it's still growing. This is the first time they've had a true face of the league that generates so much value, not just viewership and broadcasting on the court, but also generated so much money off the court as well. She's going to be able to do things a little bit more quicker for us that social currency, for us that being the face of the league, for us that having an impact, for us like getting players paid more, charter flights, a lot of this stuff. Those are things that Caitlin Clark is going to essentially be responsible for because of the draw that she has and the buzz and the attention that she gets, that a player like LeBron James, over the course of his career, he became kind of bigger than the NBA. Caitlin Clark is going to do that very, very much quicker due to the fact of all the things that I mentioned. But let's get back to it.
For helping drive the numbers of merchandising up 500%. Of course, her jersey was number one. And most importantly, I think people look at this and think she said no. That's not the case. She said she wants her first competition to be an indie at WNBA.
First competition, wants to be at WNBA. And also, she's not letting these people that's going to be on social media and try to use her name for its different narratives that they were going to want to carry out. Meaning that she's very strategic. When she speaks with purpose. She speaks with passion. When it comes to her brand, she uses her brand. She uses her influence in ways that's going to strategically make her more valuable and also put her in a great limelight, because the fact of the matter, we have so many people that want to put her in a bad limelight and put her in these terrible conversations and always trying to use her to get off of some of their agendas. Caitlin Clark is not going for that, because we know she would have participated in this in this NBA 3-point contest this weekend in San Francisco, which would have been historic, which would have been legendary because of the fact of the matter, the All-Star game weekend is going to be in San Francisco with Stephen Curry, and Stephen Curry is the greatest basketball shooter to ever dawn the face of this planet. It would have been phenomenal to see Caitlin Clark and Stephen Curry compete for all fans around the world. But Caitlin Clark is saying, I get that, I understand the importance, but I have my own I have my own things that I want to do within my career, and I want to make sure that the All-Star game, which is in Indianapolis this upcoming year, is going to be the first time where I participate in an event, and it's going to gather so many eyes and so many people that's going to lock in on this event essentially for that. Let's just hope it's not at the middle of the day, like 2 or 3 o'clock, like it was last year. Let's get back to it.
All-Star, which to me is huge. People don't see the numbers below. Like the economic impact, 36 million she drove to Indianapolis just by showing up.
She generated, we know,
as a rookie and making history. And so I understand her point of view. She wants to probably let other athletes shine. And she gets what she also says, like it's like earned, not given. There are previous winners that should have an opportunity to probably compete. Alicia Gray is the reigning WNBA 3-point contest champion, the same way that Sabrina Ionescu entered the competition after winning in 2023. There are other people that can use that spotlight to compete as well. So I think Caitlin, she moves because she knows people follow her no matter where she.
And that's what I said about the whole kind of like Alicia Gray, phenomenal player, we know. But at the same time, it's just kind of like she's not Caitlin Clark. So it's not always about like fairness. And sometimes with the WNBA and people that commentate on the NBA and things of that nature, when they're talking about when the way that they're covering the game, it's always this thing about like, well, fairness and highlighting other stars and other talents. Respectfully, Gray is excellent. She is great. She is phenomenal. But it's a reason why Sabrina Ionescu was chosen. It's the reason why they want Caitlin Clark chosen as well. Gray is not the draw that Sabrina Ionescu is and Caitlin Clark is. So it wouldn't even make sense for the NBA to even have that as a competition for the 3-point All-Star weekend shootout contest. CC is sitting back laughing. This is all some of the best PR going to bring even more viewers. It is working. Now watch the NBA 3-point halftime. I agree. Definitely true. Let's get back to it.
She goes, and she's very strategic about dictating where her value is.
I'm detecting you don't agree, Stephen A.
You're detecting wrong. I do agree with her.
Okay.
I am just disappointed in some of the points she negated to bring up. So I'm going to bring them up.
Perfect.
Okay.
Fine.
First of all, touching on the points that you brought up, let's throw out some numbers here. Okay. When you're talking about the 2024 WNBA All-Star Game on ABC, it was watched by an average audience of 3.4 million viewers, making it the largest audience ever for a WNBA All-Star Game. That's number one.
That's big.
Number two, the 2024 NBA All-Star Game in Indianapolis drew a disappointing rating. They were averaging about 5.5 million viewers across TNT, TBS, and other places. The figure marked the second lowest in history, trailing only the previous year.
Wow. So, and Stephen A. Smith brings up some valid points, and it just goes to show you the trend of the direction where women's basketball is going. It's going to be very, very great. I've said this multiple times in several streams. The WNBA is going to be known as the summer sport because there's nothing going on in the summer, and it's no football. It's no National Basketball Association. And it's baseball, of course, but baseball is a very methodical, very slow sport at times. Hard to watch a baseball game for 3 hours. The WNBA is very quick, 2 hours, different styles of play, a lot of draws, a lot of physical kind of like aggression that comes out of the WNBA for like contact and things of that nature, two bigs in the paint, all these different play styles, all these different players, and they really get after it. And also they play a brand of basketball that's more suitable to watch because not everybody is just dunks, and threes. It's really a lot of sets running, a lot of plays. And once again, there's multiple teams that have different play styles, unlike the NBA where you got the Boston Celtics playing this beautiful play style and brand of basketball. But then on top of that, you got the Washington Wizards trying to play the same brand of basketball as the Boston Celtics, but it looks terrible and atrocious due to the fact they don't have the personnel to do that. But of course, with advanced stats and analytics, it says threes and layups. So every team wants to play that brand of basketball when the fact of the matter is only a few teams in the NBA should be playing that brand of basketball. But basketball has become a numbers game, unfortunately. So when you listen to Stephen A. Smith and he says these numbers about the All-Star game in comparison to the WNBA's game, yes, it has to do with Caitlin Clark, but also has to do when we go back to the college. Even the college women's game without Caitlin Clark right now is still drawing in a lot of numbers, and I can't wait to the March Madness tournament because that's what we're really going to get to see without Caitlin Clark. Can that momentum continue? But the women's game is drawing some numbers bigger than the NCAA men's and also the NBA as well, which is very, very important for the overall growth, and which lets me know that the WNBA and women's basketball in general is heading in the right direction, which is why it was the number one growing league last year in 2024.
Okay, so that's what the state of the NBA is. The other point to be made, that three-point contest between Ionescu and Steph Curry had peaked viewership of 5.4 million from 10 to 10:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The event was the most watched NBA All-Star Saturday night in 4 years. Why do I bring all of that up? I totally applaud what Caitlin Clark is doing. She's putting the WNBA first.
Hear what he said? And that's what, and it's crazy because, and O'Shea is right. If the NBA sent over some NBA players to the WNBA events, it would draw more viewership, especially the big time players as well. I think that's a great idea that the NBA should consider as well, because you can't just want WNBA stars to be incorporated with the NBA product to help viewership and help boost the game, even though the leagues are kind of synonymous because they go hand in hand, because the NBA for years and still to this day has been funding the WNBA survival for a league standpoint. So that's a great, great point that Stephen A. brought up. Also, O'Shea brought up as well. Get in the chat, man, with y'all questions. Let's get it.
She's saying, yo, we matter first to me.
And another point, and this is great, because so many times when we talk about the WNBA and we highlight some of the issues that people have for us, Indiana Fever fans, Caitlin Clark fans, and just people that are fans and the purists of basketball like myself that analyze the game and cover the game. My biggest issue is that Caitlin Clark is putting the WNBA first, and she constantly has been putting the WNBA first in a magnitude of different ways. But the problem is, when is the WNBA going to start putting Caitlin Clark first for his social media, for his talking about some of her accomplishments, sharing certain things? It just seems like when we talk about Caitlin Clark, when it comes to the WNBA, you have the Indiana Fever, of course, the team that she's on, highlighting everything. And then when you go to the WNBA, not even just the WNBA, sometimes even Nike as well, it feels like they're not doing enough to push already a mega star who is outside of LeBron James domestically. For stars, outside of LeBron James is probably the biggest star, and probably Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant. But definitely outside of LeBron James, like, you can make a case that Caitlin Clark is bigger than Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant, even though I still would say Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant, of course, globally and even domestically is bigger than Caitlin Clark. But the fact that you can make that case lets me know lets you know how big of a star Caitlin Clark is.
We should matter first to the ladies. I'll make an argument. Considering the lackluster effort the NBA players have been given during All-Star Weekend, they should matter more, period. It's a travesty what has happened to the NBA. I'm going to say this, L, and I've said this before. You may not have seen me say it. I know Shanae has seen me say it. These guys play harder in summertime when they're working out than they play at All-Star Weekend. How inexcusable is that?
Another great point by Stephen A. Smith. And it's very interesting. It's very interesting. And we're going to see what's going to happen. And also we'll be back because Caitlin Clark is going to draw a lot of, when her jersey is about to retire as well, when we talk about with the Iowa Hawkeyes as well. And I'm all for this. And once again, I said it early in the stream. I'm proud that Caitlin Clark is making this decision because one, she's showing once again that she is essentially doing things for the WNBA, regardless of people giving her hate or love. She's putting the Women's National Basketball Association league first. And that's what you want to do, being the face of the league and being the biggest draw in the sport of not just the women's side, but outside of LeBron and Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant in all of basketball. She is an incredible draw. So her wanting to highlight the WNBA and the WNBA's three-point contest and making sure that in Indiana, which is her home team, the team that she plays on, that her fans get to see her first, and all the viewership will be on the state of Indiana first, is very, very commendable and also very strategic and also very on par with the way she moves and goes about things when we talk about her being a brand, her overall personal brand as well. So that is phenomenal. Not really mad at it. Got to respect it. For the NBA, De'Aaron Fox, is several teams out there that want De'Aaron Fox, and De'Aaron Fox has come out and basically Rich Paul has said that he's encouraging the Sacramento Kings to move him before he opts out, and he wants to get to a certain team. And that certain team reminds me of Kelsey Mitchell just re-signing with Caitlin Clark in the state of Indiana after Kelsey Mitchell earlier this season was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do in free agency. And I don't know if I want to test the markets. I want to spread my wings and fly. I want to go out and see what's out there. But what people got to understand, when there is transcending talents, most people want to go play with transcending talents. LeBron James is probably the only player, unfortunately, the only transcending talent where no matter how hard he tried, that incompetent organization, they couldn't get free agents to come and want to play with him, which is one of the reasons why he left, which I never understood why people were always talking about why LeBron James should have stayed with the Cleveland Cavaliers and he shouldn't have left after free agency. He should have took his career in his own hands. It's up to your organization to make sure that when you have a transcending star, you're doing everything in your power to make sure that that transcending star has success and able to take your team to the promised land, and you get the right pieces in order to capture a championship or make championship appearances. And sometimes when you are a transcending star, you're so good that you can take a team, i.e. LeBron James, take a team to the finals and carrying that weight and that mantle and make it to the promised land, even though you don't win, but you're so gifted and you're so talented that sometimes teams take that for granted, but also just shows you how transcending of a figure or basketball or athlete or whatever sport that you're playing for as team-wise in the team game that you are. And when we look at Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell re-signing with the Indiana Fever makes a lot of sense because she knows that Caitlin Clark makes her game easier. Caitlin Clark is a transcending star, transcending figure in the sport. Once again, I said this in several streams. Every 20 years, we have a transcendent figure enter different sports league. We have Caitlin Clark, who has entered the WNBA, who's that transcendent figure. And that means that people are going to want to come and play with her. And when we talk about De'Aaron Fox, who says he wants to be out, says he's looking for a trade, and he has a preferred destination in San Antonio, which has never been a free agent stomping ground. last big-time free agent that they got to come there was LaMarcus Aldridge, which was a big man out in Portland. But when you have a transcending star and a transcending figure in Victor Wembanyama, you got players that want to go play with him. You got players that want to come over. You got players that are going to want to come down there and possibly join forces and to compete for a championship because of that transcending figure. So when we look at De'Aaron Fox and we see that San Antonio Spurs is top of his preferred option, it's phenomenal. It's great because a lot of small market teams don't get that love unless they get a transcendent figure like a Victor Wembanyama and like a Caitlin Clark in Indiana, which also goes to show you as well as when you talk about historically what Caitlin Clark did with Iowa and how she didn't go play with UConn. She didn't go play in USC. She didn't go play at Notre Dame. She didn't go play at LSU or South Carolina. She took a mid-major to back-to-back title appearances. That's the LeBron shit. So it's not surprising to me why you hear all these rumors about potential players that want to play with her, even though her play style can be hard sometimes. If we keep it in a B, it can be, you have to adjust. But when you're a transcending star and transcending figure, it's just kind of like it's sacrifices that had to be made. And as long as you see the big picture, and as long as you want to compete for a championship, then a lot of players are going to want to join forces with you. And we're seeing that with De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama. He wants to go down there with San Antonio. He wants to join forces with Victor Wembanyama because he possibly can win a championship, and also he can be the 1B, the second option to Victor Wembanyama, and they can do some very, very great things together. As well as De'Aaron Fox is also interested in the Houston Rockets and also interested in the Miami Heat. Miami Heat with the relationship with Kentucky and the crew. We know that's very big. That's very important for De'Aaron Fox's relationship with Bam Adebayo. Also, Tyler Hero being a Kentucky guard. The Kentucky guard trio forming with down at South Beach would be phenomenal. But do I trust Pat Riley? Absolutely not. Pat Riley is cooked, in my opinion, as a president, as a GM. I don't think he's going to be able to get it done, even though we know that he wants to possibly go down there and play with Miami if he's not going to San Antonio as well. But Dame wanted to play in Miami, and he didn't get that opportunity, and because the Heat didn't do what they needed to do. So do I trust that the Miami Heat and De'Aaron Fox could be a thing and he can possibly go down there? No, I do not know, because I do not trust the Miami Heat organization. Look how they mishandled this Jimmy Butler situation, who is another player that wants to be out right now, and they suspended indefinitely. So that just goes to show you when we talk about transcending talents, we're talking about generational type of players. Players are going to want to play with them, and players are going to come to small market teams. And it's always great when small market teams are successful, because of the fact of the matter is so many times people say you got to go and win championships. You got to go to the big media and marketable capitals of the world. That's not always the case. And when you have a player that's been drafted, that is a transcending figure, transcending talent, you have to do everything in your power to make sure that you're competing for a championship, or you're getting players that can help you compete for a championship. And you also got to make sure that those players can make the game easier for players that want to come and play with your transcending stars, even though sometimes our play styles can be very, very difficult. But at the end of the day, it's like talent beats untalent, and greatness sees other greatness, and why not join on to that greatness to do something spectacular and special. It is your boy, Ma K. Smith. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. Also, follow me on AKISS NBA on all the social media platforms, talking to WNBA and the NBA. Remember, faith without works is dead. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not onto your own understanding, and always acknowledge him, and he will direct thy path. This is your boy, Ma K. Smith. I'm gone, man. Peace.